What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on off-field antics and another edition of the FPL show. This is the show for Game Week 7. Game Week 6 is just finished, and I'm joined by Rod to take a look over what has happened and look into the future. I guess make some predictions, I guess. But anyway, Rod, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. It was a low-scoring fantasy week, but in terms of football, there's a lot to talk about, and yeah.
Yeah, you're very much right with that. In terms of fantasy, Rod, I did end up on 43, slightly below the average, in which was a very low-scoring week. For me, in terms of my captain decision, we was talking about that last week. I ended up going with Erling Haaland, who ended up being the only real viable choice for me in my starting 11. Other than Erling, no one got over 3 points, other than Trippier, who finished on 8 for me. So a kind of filthy looking team, I guess you could say, for Game Week 6. But overall, I'm not really too disappointed. We're still really early on in the season, and I think we might bounce back next week.
Yeah, mate, it was inevitable, to be honest. It was only ever going to be Haaland who was going to perform. Obviously, going into it, it was going to be interesting, but if you owned Haaland, 90% of you captained him, which is understandable. But 40 points, red arrow to 146k, not great. Harrison coming off at halftime was rather annoying. I thought maybe he'd be able to make me up some points, but yeah, overall, mate, one of the lowest scoring game weeks there's been in a while.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard one to watch, and you just kind of kept looking on the FPL app and that just to find out whereabouts I was, and I was kind of surprised that I was, I guess, second highest in our league, without even having too high of a score. Only one of our friends finished above me, I think it was. He had like 60 odd points, but a bit of a crazy one because he had like the likes of Kane and that. But yeah, it's just a really low scoring week, and I think going into next week, there's a lot of things which are definitely worth looking at. In terms of fantasy, Rod, I do have one transfer coming into this game week, and I'm guessing you have the same. But for me, I'm not too sure what point I'm at. I think a lot of people were looking at wildcarding around game week 7. But for me, I'm just not too sure anymore because it was the plan all along to wildcard somewhere between 5 and 8 for me. But I just don't really know what I can do even if I do wildcard.
Yeah, I've got two transfers. But I'm like us we were talking earlier. If you've kept your team from the start, you haven't really probably had to make many changes. The only change I'm probably gonna make, bar any injuries, because that could mess things up a little bit. Probably going to be Diaz to Trippier. Newcastle look good. Trippier on set pieces. Probably the obvious move for me. But I've got two transfers, but I don't really feel like I need to move anyone. I will be looking at slowly filtering out my Liverpool assets. But maybe two, but definitely I think Diaz. I mean, in game week 8 they have Liverpool, have Chelsea, then Brighton, Arsenal, City, so they've got some tough games. And Diaz hasn't really got me that excited this year. I was going to sell him prior to Bournemouth, but he got those 2 goals. I thought I'll give him another chance. And since then, he's had Everton and Newcastle and done nothing. So I'm going to be looking to move him on. But then again, there's no one really in that price bracket who's interesting. But I think wildcard in the next few weeks, obviously international break coming up, and I imagine that'll be a bit of time when a lot of people wildcard.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like for me, looking at my squad right now, I'm fairly happy with it. Ideally, I'd like someone a bit better than Aronson in my midfield. But my defense I'm pretty happy with. I think Nico Williams has been nothing but great at 4 mil. Bringing in Dallo a couple of weeks ago, he's done really well for me. I've already got Trippier, and it's Trent and Cancelo. Personally, I am kind of in my head a little bit, and I kind of think about getting rid of Salah if I can find maybe 2 viable options where I can get 2 really solid midfielders in there instead of him. I guess maybe take out Aronson and Salah and then look at what sort of duo I could put in the midfield there. And defensively, if I was to get rid of Trent, I'd probably maybe look at bringing in another City defender or something like that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with my squad. I know a lot of people are thinking about wildcarding, but I think as long as I'm happy, I'm not gonna just wildcard for the sake of wildcarding. If I need to make more than 2 or 3 transfers, then I might just press the button. But right now, no panicking. This year, Jack's taking 0 hits, and I'm going to stay in the league for as long as possible. But yeah, Rod, I do find it interesting on the Salah point because I did see you, I guess, kind of admiring my bravery of maybe taking out Salah. He's someone who you just never take out, but we was talking about it last week. He's not the same player, in my opinion, and this Liverpool side is currently not performing at the level which you would expect. Are you kind of 100% against taking Salah out right now?
It was hard because I'm stuck in the old ways of he's been ridiculous for 4-5 years now. But just watching him recently and this season, he just doesn't look like the same player. Liverpool don't look like the same team, and he is holding a lot of money in that 13. And if I am to get rid of him, I think there's probably only really one player. That player probably being KDB. But it's a really difficult one, but I can see why people are moving Salah, especially if you're on a wild card, move things around, 13 million. I'm currently sticking, but like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing out Diaz soon. I'll give him this Wolves game, and if he gets another brace or something, I'm going to probably keep him again. But there's just the options in the midfield this year. Last year it was stacked. You had so many people performing. This year has been a bit stagnant with strikers outperforming. But like I said, we are still only 6 game weeks in, 32 to go. We've got European competitions now that could shake things up, rotation, injuries. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on, mate. But right now, Salah's in my team. Come the international break, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, for me, it is an interesting one for sure. I still have Sterling in there. I'm not too sure. Like, for me, there's a lot of teams that going into the season I had sneak feelings about, and I kind of, in terms of my FPL, I'm a bit scattergun at the moment. Like, if I got a feeling that someone might be hot, I might bring them in, but I think I've got to look into the future. And I think if you do take out Salah, it's not the worst thing, because if you wild card him out, it's not that long of a distance until the World Cup anyway. And if his performances do start to gradually increase, you can always look at bringing him back around that time. Obviously, he's going to get a massive break around the World Cup, which I think could be huge because, a lot of players are going to be playing just non-stop, European football and Premier League. And then they're coming back after the World Cup after playing numerous games. So, yeah, for me, Salah is definitely a viable option. I think we should probably take a look at some of the results which did happen, Rod. I guess we could start off with Villa against Man City because I guess it was an interesting one for you. Gerrard out, Gerrard in. What's your stance right now?
I'm still Gerrard out, mate, but I think he's bought himself another 6 weeks, probably. Like I said before, I just want to see the team just try. And at City, I thought we were going to get slapped, so this result came as a huge surprise. And I think this is the first time in a while where I think he's actually learnt a little bit from his mistakes, where our setup was completely different and we were nowhere near as narrow. We were still a bit more narrower. They did get in behind a couple of times, but we were nowhere near as narrow as we've been. And I think the midfield was just far more balanced. Luiz, McGinn and Kamara in that three was just balanced, and I enjoyed watching it. Luiz is essential. I don't know why he's taken a nearly transfer to Arsenal for him to start playing. But I was impressed, mate, because I think we contained City, we executed the game plan well. Of course, City had lots of chances. They're always going to have a lot of chances. But I'm proud, mate, of the performance, and very, very surprised to tie the champions 1-1 in a season where we've started poorly and they've started quite well is crazy. And could we have won it? It's hard. I don't know why he was so trigger happy on the whistle. Usually they delay it, which is
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was at home as well, wasn't it? So, I do think the result is different if you were away in that game, but I think it was a much needed sort of, I guess you could say, result in some ways because it was looking a bit bleak. And I think getting a point against the champions is a huge morale boost. Especially coming into the next couple games, are real crucial ones, especially Leicester. If you look at yourselves in a relegation battle at this moment in time. But in all honesty, I was kind of really surprised with how Villa played. I think, it's hard to say that City didn't deserve a win, but I do believe you deserve something out of that game because I thought you was really good. The Coutinho chance, like you said, it is a bit of a hard one, because actually watching it, when I saw it, I thought he was offside, and then you see the replay and he's pretty much onside, isn't he, quite clearly? And you're right in saying he was a bit trigger happy on the whistle. But I think a lot of people are saying, oh, it could have been blocked, this and that, but it's not like the player's delay of reaction was that much. It's hard to say if he would have actually scored or not, but it's a disappointing one for you because you kind of feel let down a little bit by VAR there. I feel like if it's one of the big teams, potentially we're not talking about this and we're talking about an actual goal. But it actually brings me on to my question about Manchester City because we're talking about the league's over in August. We didn't know, who could really challenge them, but they seem to be their own worst enemies at the moment. They've got draws now in two of their first four games, Villa and Newcastle. Kind of games where you would expect them to, normally pick up all three, but it hasn't gone their way. And they're not really pulling clear of anyone at this moment in time. Are you still really confident in the fact that they are going to win the league? And, this is only, a blimp. Is that what they say?
Yeah, I'm very, very confident that they're going to win the league. I just think they are consistent in what they do, and over the course of the season, that's going to be more than enough to win it. I think in every season you can have blimps, but they've got the quality. They know how to go about things, and what they missed in recent years, they've got an Erling Haaland. They've got someone on the 6-yard box where they've missed chances in the previous years due to maybe they're playing like a winger there, like Sterling or whatever. He'll score. Like last year, I don't think there's anyone at the back post to score against the Villa, and this year they've got him, and I think he got a hat-trick against Norwich from the 6-yard box. They needed always someone there. I think that they will win the league. Liverpool look poor. Chelsea won't challenge them. I can't see Arsenal challenge them. They haven't got the mentality. They're still very naive. I don't think United are quite there yet. But yeah, I think they're going to win the league.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right. It is hard to say though because despite looking so dominant in their, I guess you could say, first 6 games, it's surprising that they have actually dropped 4 points. But yeah, I am confident as well in terms of that they are just too strong overall. I think it's going to be interesting to see how European football affects them, but I think with the size of their squad, they really shouldn't struggle with this. I guess the next game we could talk about, Rod. Let's have a look. Which game am I fancy talking about? I guess we could probably go to the Chelsea West Ham game because I think this is one of the games which was extremely controversial. I think there was quite a few this weekend in terms of VAR. But Chelsea end up picking up a result against West Ham in which I feel it leaves a dirty taste in the mouth. It just doesn't seem right. I feel like Chelsea were protected in that game by the referee, and Edward Mendy is a shit goalkeeper at this kind of moment and point. He gives the ball away more than De Gea, in my opinion. And I just felt like the decision to call a foul on Bowen was just kind of disgusting. And for West Ham, I think they've kind of been robbed of some points there because I think they were worthy of, potentially even a win. I think they were I think it's fair to say they were probably the better side in terms of the chances they were creating. Chelsea still looking very stagnant up top. What's your sort of opinions coming away from that game?
I think playing on the referee VAR's mind was what happened against Spurs. Maybe they feel like they had to level it, but they've ruled out a perfectly fine goal. And Moyes has said everything correctly. He's gone down holding his side or whatever he was holding because he's not in control of it and isn't going to get the ball or recover it. Great finish by Cornet, nevertheless. Bowen, as you can see, doesn't. He tries to get out of the way, but I don't know what you're meant to do when you're trying to step over someone. Of course, if they start moving upwards, you're going to clip them. It's a perfectly fine goal, and obviously, I think the PGMOL, whatever they are, asked the Premier League to review it, and I think they've reviewed it and said the decisions were wrong. And now they're going to learn lessons from it. But learning lessons doesn't gain you a point, and that point could be crucial, mate. We know like every point in the Premier League's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think West Ham are going to feel robbed, and it's just I don't get how it's poor officiating. It's a theme of flipping almost every episode though. It shouldn't happen this often, and I don't know how you can get it so wrong. Like everything in slow motion or incredibly slow motion is going to look bad. It's just the way it is, and I'm confused to how it was given as a foul.
Yeah.
Really confusing for Tuchel to come out and say it's the right decision. It's just, I think he has to say that. I don't feel like he actually means that. Obviously, they got robbed the other week against Spurs.
I can't stand him, in all honesty, the way he was talking it, like going, if I say anything, I get banned. And I think that's the one thing I do agree with him with. It's like managers kind of, and, people around the game, their sort of right to voice their opinion is now being taken away because if you're deemed to be, I guess, slandering a referee, you're going to get fined and banned. And for me, I think this is disgusting because we talk about referees being too protected, and this is exactly what we're talking about. Like, how can you be, I'm not saying their job's easy, but if they get something wrong, they should be called out for it. And like you said, they got it wrong in that game. And for me, the same happened in the Leeds game. I thought it was a stonewall penalty for Leeds. Jesse March has gone to the referee, bats a penalty, he gets sent off. I feel like the game is kind of going to shit in this terms. I think VAR is something which should be 100% or not at all. I do wonder what sort of stage we are getting to within VAR. Like, I don't think it's going to be something where it's going to be around 100% in the future. I do think that potentially we look at, the Premier League and VAR going towards maybe more of an American sort of style where you get challenges instead of having, this constant look, because I do think it's taken away from the spectacle, and, everything is VAR, VAR, VAR. And, I think we should probably just go off gut instinct more often because everything is too subjective in that way. You're never going to be 100% right. And the game has just gotten to a stage now where it's just pissing me off when it comes to VAR.
Every goal that goes in is scrutinised tremendously for anything, and it just feels robotic now. Where I think it just isn't applied correctly. The people using it are inconsistent, and I think we could get it if the decisions were consistent, but they don't tend to be. They say they've increased the threshold for a penalty or whatever bollocks. Obviously not. There's been some weird decisions this year. Nothing's clear cut, and you just feel like those little things that make football the sport it is are just completely reversed. And we'll get onto the Brighton game, I imagine, briefly, but like just little things like that where it just doesn't make any sense. And as a team, especially if you're not a big six team, more often than not, there's been studies done, you're going to get shafted a good few times. And West Ham have been shafted, Villa been shafted, and Brighton was shafted along with Newcastle. So
yeah, I guess before we go on to that Brighton game, I just wanted to touch on the Merseyside derby.
Yeah.
what was your overall thoughts about it? Because I felt like Everton looked strong in the game, and I feel like they were maybe the more likely to actually come away with all 3 points. Connor Cody gets his goal disallowed for offside. I think that was a bit of a gutting one because it was a nice moment, but overall, Liverpool, man, they're hard to kind of describe because it's not permanent. Um, but what is surprising is this Klopp 7 year thing where it all went to shit for him at Dortmund at 7 years, and people are trying to make the same comparison for him at Liverpool. But I don't necessarily think that is true. I just feel like the squad's in a bit of a difficult position right now in terms of, the Mane transfer out was a big deal. He got his number 9, but he's been missing through suspension. And for me, that midfield is bone dry. I don't know what they can really do at this moment in time. I think they're going to struggle. I would be surprised if they got top 4 this year. Just because I am impressed with some of their players, don't get me wrong, but I think the overall performances, you're not seeing enough, average performances. It's either good or bad. But in terms of the players I've been really impressed with, I think Harvey Elliott's done a really good job coming into the side. I know he's talking about something ridiculous like getting 15 goals a season. I really don't see that for him, but I think he's kind of fitted into that midfield really well, despite being someone who coming in I thought was a bit undersized. I think his energy, he's been really good and he's been vital for that Liverpool midfield. And for me, Carvalho's looked like a breath of fresh air. I think, they should probably rely on a couple of these players because I think a lot of the more veteran players in the squad are letting them down right now.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I thought it was quite end to end. I thought it was quite an interesting spectacle. I think Liverpool created more chances, and I mean Pickford was tremendous that game. He did a great job and made some incredible saves. To be completely fair, Liverpool probably could have won it, should have won it, hit the woodwork multiple times, but they did lack that clear cut edge where usually they'd punish people for it. This game they couldn't. Previous years they'd punish people. Everton, they never looked like they were out of the game. To be honest, I thought Gordon was good. His bursting runs. I thought Iwobi was good, and they had the focal point in Malpe, and he missed a big chance. Obviously, Cody was offside, but it was a good move. And Liverpool were caught out a couple of times, and this is where, for me, form and performances go out the window in a derby like this. It matters on the day who's got the nerve, and
Who
neither
wants
team.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to be gutted, Liverpool, though, because it's another game where I've not been convinced one bit. And you think that's 6 games now. That's not normal Liverpool. But yeah, like you said, Harvey Elliott for me has been fantastic when he's had to play. Carvalho's been good. Diaz, I haven't been impressed with, to be honest, too much. I think he's still a very skillful player. Nunes looks a bit like the Uruguayan Andy Carroll, but obviously he's still settling in.
I think he's someone who looks to actually, like, the easier chances don't seem to be falling for him, but it's the ones where they look increasingly hard. He pulls something out the bag, like that one shot from, like, on that angle. Pickford tipped it onto the crossbar. That was insane. I think you're right about Luis Diaz, though. I think he is one of the most overhyped players in the Premier League. I think he's a brilliant dribbler, don't get me wrong. And occasionally he pulls something out the bag like he did a couple of weeks ago with that long shot, but he's not consistent enough in terms of end product. For me, I think he's not really a Mane replacement. I think it is what it is, but yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, I think Everton are going to be incredibly pleased. They look more organised, to be honest, than I've seen them in recent weeks. They looked like they had a plan, and Goodison helped them. So huge result for Everton, but Liverpool are going to be gutted again.
Yeah, I think that's 4 draws on the bounce now for Everton, which I guess consistency is key. They draw the rest of their games this season, I think they'd be safe. I don't think that'll happen there. But yeah, I guess we could move on to the Brighton game. I actually haven't watched this one yet, Rod. I need to check the highlights out on it. I missed it. But let me know what kind of happened in the game, because I'm guessing Brendan Rodgers is in big trouble.
I didn't watch it all. I watched a good lot of it, and obviously Leicester go 1-0 up. and you think, okay, fucking hell, they might actually do something here. Brighton equalised quite soon after. Um, Brighton, they just look so good, mate. Like Brett Potter's got on playing such a great style of football. Everyone knows their job. Everyone knows what they have to do. Players on paper who you think aren't particularly great look fantastic. McAllister, Trossard, Gross, they're all brilliant. And I mean, they did slaughter Leicester, and 5-2 is a huge scoreline, especially after going 1-0 down. I think Brendan Rodgers' job is in jeopardy, to be honest, mate. I think his days are numbered. He's brought some good days to Leicester, but overall, I think he's going to be.
Yeah.
Can't really see him lasting too much longer. They do have Villa this weekend, who they'll probably beat. That will buy him another few weeks because we tend to give managers more weeks when they're struggling. Yeah, mate. I think he's on the ropes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I was looking. Well, this game I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really have any opinions on the game. But I was just thinking to myself, I like the Brighton squad a lot. I like the sort of players they got in there, some really hard workers. But like, if Potter had Rodgers' side at Leicester, what sort of team would they be? You think of the quality that Leicester side actually has in terms of like, I feel like Harvey Barnes would be unreal under Potter. Um, I think Ndidi in that midfield, someone like Lillemans would have a really good season, I feel, under Potter. Because I think Potter likes those sort of midfielders who can go forward a bit. Like Pascal Gross. But I think I think it's kind of the race to Potter. I think someone needs to tie him down. I don't think Brighton is long term for him. I think this probably is his last season at Brighton because he's proved too much. It's going to be interesting to see who can get a hold of him. I wouldn't even be surprised if he went elsewhere in terms of like maybe even, like abroad even, because I feel like if the job's big enough and someone's willing to give him a chance, I feel you do a fantastic job. And honestly, I think the one team who could really do with him would actually be Spurs. Not Spurs, sorry. Fucking Chelsea. I think he'd be a brilliant pickup for Chelsea, but I know he's kind of Midlands based. What do you think about him at Villa, Rod?
Oh, I adore him at Villa, mate. I completely adore him. I wanted him. I think if we offered enough money when we got Gerrard, I think he would have came. I've got this bet on with my friend. I think we said in the 25-26 season, Villa will be in a better position than Brighton. Thank God the bet isn't for years before that. Otherwise, I'd be losing because I think I'm just unfortunate with Brighton. They haven't got no disrespect. They haven't got the ownership. They haven't got the pedigree. They haven't got the players and things like that, which is their only downfall because they play some of the best football in the league and they have an incredibly good manager. But I'd love him at Villa. If there wasn't a World Cup this winter, I think he goes. If maybe England, I think he's good enough to be England manager.
Oh, so much better than Southgate.
When you say you think it's his last year, it kind of depends on people who get sacked. I don't know.
I think it's his last year because what else?
Leicester, but is that a step from Brighton?
Wow, yeah. In terms of what sort of squad he has and what sort of the ambition is, I just think with this Brighton squad, and I think they've been really smart in the transfer market. I think the moves they make and the identity of players that they bring in has always been really strong. I think Moises Caicedo has, kind of proven that he looks fantastic in their midfield. He was linked with United, but United didn't want to take a punt on him. And I think the fee was around like £3 million at the time. And I was kind of shocked that we didn't go in because it's not even a risk. Look at the fee that we paid for Ahmad. And he seems to be a brilliant player. I just think in terms of what can Potter achieve with his side, there is a ceiling. Unless they were able to spend a lot more money on the squad, I do think he does lack that individual quality of time. But as a unit, they are so strong. But I'd love the Leicester move for him. I think you look at that squad, there's so many options for him. Like I said, I think Harvey Barnes would be a great player under him. I think if you look at what Trossard is for him, I think he'd put up similar numbers, if not better. And for me, that midfield is where I think Leicester are so strong. But I mean, I was actually watching a stream earlier on, and someone was talking about would Villa and Leicester actually be in a better position if the managers just swapped. You had Rodgers, who is going to come in and play a more balanced system in terms of, he's probably going to go for a two in midfield, someone like a Douglas Luiz alongside a Kamara. And Gerrard, who's, if you look at Leicester and the sort of system that they've got, the front three is kind of more suited to them in terms of that he could play a bit more of a narrow three with Barnes, Daka, and Iheanacho. And I thought it was an interesting point. Obviously, it's never going to happen, but it was an interesting point, I thought.
Yeah, I don't want Rodgers anywhere near Villa, to be completely honest with you. But it's an interesting point. Before Gerrard, I wanted Potter. I really wanted Potter, but I also wouldn't have minded Hasenhüttl because I quite rate Hasenhüttl. But yeah, mate.
Yeah, but yeah, it is dark days. I think the Villa Leicester match could be. He wants to go back to the Scottish Premier League first. But no, it's going to be a good match. I do expect it to be a lot closer, and I think giving Leicester the win straight away, Rod, it's a bit naive. I think Villa are very capable of winning that one.
We're capable, mate, but we're not. We haven't got the ability.
Yeah, I guess we'll go to the biggest game on the weekend, Rod. United 3, Arsenal 1. Someone said they were very confident in United picking up a result. I can't really remember what that guy's name was, but no, I was over the moon with the game, in all honesty. I think, there are moments which were really hard watch for me, personally. I thought, would pick up a win, and I was pretty confident in that. But it was more of the fact that I thought we'd dominate them in the midfield, and I don't really think that was the case. I think at times when we did get a hold of the ball, we were proving that we were the better side at times. But I thought we'd have a lot more of the ball, and it was a bit of a hard watch at times in that second half. But overall, I think we was very clinical. I think the goals that we actually scored, I think a lot of people are just getting counter-attacking football, but I think it's a bit more than that, and I think it's been proven over the past few games in terms of our goals where we're able to string together, numerous passes. I think the Anthony goal was like something like 19 passes before the goal. In a long move which went from back to front multiple times, but I was really happy with it. I think Arsenal are still a solid side, but it was interesting to see what would happen when they faced a little bit of adversity. I don't think they crumbled like I think a lot of people would have expected. But I do think they kind of made some crazy moves towards the end with the triple substitution.
That lost them the game. I think they were very much in it, and then they made those very attacking changes, and you almost scored pretty much instantly off that, and I think that lost them the game. And that's what I think was naivety. I don't think you can do that at Old Trafford. I think you have to go about it differently. But obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I think first half, I'd say it was pretty even. I think you started off okay. Obviously, you got the goal, and then I think they played better. Second half, they started far better than you, and obviously they did then go and get that goal. But I think Rashford, hit the right. I thought he was brilliant. Mega haul on in fantasy. But he was just on job, mate, and he looked really good. And obviously Anthony got the first goal, and then Rashford got the other two. But yeah, I think obviously you can't. I was surprised that Casemiro didn't start, especially after he's thrown Anthony straight in. But obviously that's for him to decide. I think Martinez got injured. Maguire came on, gave a foul straight away, which made me howl. I think the funniest moment of the game was that attempted pass, mate. That made me die, bro.
I think the funniest moment was when Scott McTominay did a suplex. But no, I think, like you said, it was surprising that Casemiro didn't start. I thought after a couple games coming in here and there, he probably would. But I think he's been quite impressed with how the midfield's been playing. And, I'm one who's shat on McTominay multiple times. But, I mean, I guess it's more credit to Ten Hag than it is McTominay that McTominay's putting in these sort of performances where he actually looks okay. Honestly, like I'd still rather him not be on there because I do think he's a bit of a hothead, and he's guaranteed a yellow card 100%. But I was really impressed.
He's not at 6. I don't think you can play him at 6. I think he's got the passion. I don't think he's got the ability to be a Man United player. But I thought Anthony, whatever he did brilliantly. For some reason, I don't know why Ramsdale showed him onto his left foot. I think he must have forgot that he's left-footed because it was an easy finish in the end. And what I mean in terms of Arsenal naivety, I think a good press is when you give the opposition nowhere to pass. Arsenal's press is they run at you as fast as they can, and Anthony was in acres of space. I don't know what happened there, but I thought Arsenal. I didn't think they played badly. I just think they were naive in their defending, and naive in the substitutes. I don't think at Old Trafford you can go about it that way. But I thought Jesus was a handful. I think a lot of people are going to be jumping off him to get Tony or Mitrovic in. I'm still firmly on him because he looks really, really good, to be honest. He was creating things. I thought Odegaard looked good. But, yeah.
I mean, personally, I was impressed with United. I think I was saying to you about last week, I said it's not a 90-minute performance where everything goes our way. But what we do is we are very solid at the back now with Martinez and Varane. I think Dallow's been, really good, and I think he had a good game against Arsenal. Malacia, he's been really solid. Probably didn't have his best game, but I think he's going to learn from those sort of games. But what we do have is these signs where we're able to kind of string the ball together for a couple of moments, and we create really good chances. And I think that was the difference between us and Arsenal on the end of the day. We created, clear sort of chances where we had really, high XG sort of, chances of scoring a goal. And Arsenal just didn't do that. And I think that's testament to the way that Ten Hag has sort of got these United players playing. And I do think Arsenal are overrated still, but I like them. Like, you know what I mean? I think that was probably one of our toughest games, but kind of one of our best results in 3-1. That's 4 wins on the bounce now for United. And I'm really happy. I was just really happy with the performance. I felt really relieved after the game finished because it was a real stressful one. Like I said, some moments of the game came out in the second half and I was really disappointed in the fact that we didn't get hold of the ball a bit more and keep it, because we do have players who are capable of that. But I mean, it worked out in the end, I guess you could say. But I think Eriksen's been insane since coming in. That late run he got for the goal, and some of the other passes he played. Bruno with an absolute world-class pass for the second Rashford goal. I'm just saving a meme. I'm excited for the next game. I know we play Thursday, and I think I'm going to see a few different players sort of starting that game against Sociedad, which is actually a really hard game in terms of the Europa League. You look at Sociedad and what sort of players they have, I think it's going to be quite a difficult one, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. So I went blank for a second, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I guess we could look forward to the fixtures for the upcoming weekend, Rod. Some really, important games, I guess you could say. We kick things off at 12:30, Fulham against Chelsea. Fulham at home, and I'm going to go with a Fulham win. I think they've been very strong. I think the chances that they create from Mitrovic have been really good. That was the one question I had, at the start of the season. It wasn't necessarily, is Mitrovic good enough to play in the Premier League? Because I do believe he is. There's more, can they create the chances for him, which they have struggled with in the past. But, this season, since they've come up, I think the additions of, like Andreas Pereira has, been very key. And Joao Paulinho in the midfield has given them more of a solid base. And they're able to do that. I'm going to go 2-1 Fulham in this game. I just find it hard to believe that Chelsea can stop Mitrovic from scoring.
Mate, they've really impressed me this year, Fulham. They look far more organised. Obviously, Marco Silva's bottom up in his first season. And they look that they can come at any team. Mitro, who's been incredible so far, usually he tends to fail in these Premier League seasons, but he's been doing really well. And they're at home against Chelsea at the posh derby. I think they can actually go at Chelsea. And yeah, I'm going to... Oh, it's a hard one.
Chelsea is shit, come on.
They have... This is probably the best Fulham have been in the Premier League in a while, and this is probably the worst Chelsea have been. I'm still going to go 2-1 Chelsea, though.
Okay, fair enough. Hopefully Raheem can get on the score sheet for me, though. Bournemouth against Brighton. Bournemouth we didn't even talk about, but such an impressive 3-2 comeback win against Forest last week. I guess it's an odd one, right? Because I think Forest have been so impressive, but is that a sign that 20 is too many players to bring in a transfer window? I'm not too sure. But against Brighton, I think they're gonna kind of be going up Shift Creek with no battle. I'm gonna go for a Brighton win here. Probably 4-0 Brighton.
Yeah, it was crazy how the game flipped and Bournemouth were 2-0 down, I think they were, weren't they? Was it
I think
2-1?
2-0 2-0
I
wasn't
think,
it?
and then they come back and beat Forest 3-2, which would do them a world of good. But Brighton are just very, very good, and we've seen when Bournemouth play good teams, they do crumble. So I am going to go 2-0 Brighton.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't nosh off Graham Potter anymore on this video. We've done it enough so far. But yeah, Leicester against Villa. What are you saying?
3 o'clock kickoff as well. You see, last year we drew 0-0, and it was probably one of the most boring games I've ever watched. It was horrific. And then we beat them at our place, and that's when Schmeichel apparently had control of the ball, all that bollocks.
Yeah.
So, Leicester at home, I think I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester.
I mean, this is such a historic fixture, not in Premier League history, but just for me and you. Such a magical game at the King Power we went to back in the day. What year was that?
We were at college, right?
2015, right? 2015.
Yeah, must have been around then. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the year Leicester won the league, and
15, 16, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go for the exact same result. I'm gonna go 3-2 Leicester for the throwback vibes. However, I do think Villa are a lot more likely in this game to get a result than other times, because I do think King Power is a hard place to go to, but I think in the run of form that they've been in at the moment, it's probably inevitable that Brendan Rodgers does end up leaving the club in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, 3-2 Leicester. We go to Liverpool versus Wolves. I think this is an intriguing game because I think Wolves do have what it takes to hit them on the break. I feel like I always pick Wolves and they always let me down. So I'm going to pick them again. I'm going to go with 2-1 Wolves. I just don't rate this Liverpool side. I do expect Liverpool to start picking up results here and there, though. So I wouldn't be surprised if it would be in this one.
Yeah. Shout out to the Wolves striker who signed on deadline day
and then
came in because of Jimenez getting injured in the warm-up and he got an ACL injury. Like, what kind of luck is that? Poor guy, man, is out for multiple months. But
ACL, isn't it?
Yeah, Liverpool being home in this game might just edge them across. Wolves haven't really impressed me. I've seen they're getting Diego Costa on a free, which is going to be interesting to see him back.
That.
Yeah,
hopefully for this game as well, because that would be sick to see him against Van Dijk. I don't know, maybe pull his hair, do a Romero job.
33 as well. Like I wouldn't say he's at the end of his career, but he's getting towards the end of his career. Maybe if he could rejuvenate in the Premier League again, it would be a great watch because he is a comedic fella.
He's washed.
But he's Diego Costa. I'm going to 2-0 Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Like you said, Wolves haven't really been that impressive, but there's been signs. I think Mateus Nunes looks like a player who would have actually been really good in that Liverpool midfield. And Guedes, I think, with more time, is going to prove to be a good signing for them. Southampton against Brentford, I like this game a lot. I'm a big fan of what Brentford are doing. And I think Southampton has shocked a lot of people at the start of this season. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw in this one. I think both teams score. I don't think either team has the greatest defense, but I don't really see either team pulling away. Maybe a Brentford win, but I'm going to go 2-2.
Brentford, they've really impressed me, to be honest. I had them to go down. I was almost certain that, and they still might go down, but
no, they won't.
Unlikely. they've impressed me, mate, and they just look really well organised, and they've had a good start to the season. But Southampton, they're a weird team for me. I just think they've established themselves as a lower mid-table Premier League team, and I think they're fitting the bill quite well again this year. Where you kind of know what to expect, but you don't. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They are like consistent in being like solid performances, but sometimes it's just not good enough. We get to a real big game in terms of the title race. Man City against Spurs, and if there's any time for Spurs to get a massive result, this would be huge for them. However, I think at the Etihad it's going to be hard. You know, such a crazy atmosphere at that Etihad Stadium. I'm going to go with Spurs win though. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. I don't know. Maybe, are City overrated? Maybe. Maybe they are.
The interesting thing is Spurs always get something against City in the league. They always do, and
especially at the Etihad.
Yeah, they love it. And I'm pleased this game's on TV. To be honest, it tends to be on TV, but yeah, I think a huge game. To be honest, mate, show what Spurs are really all about, and obviously it's going to come after both teams playing the Champions League in the week. See what fitness rotation and that is saying. It's a hard one, mate. I always back City in these fixtures, but I'm gonna go 1-1.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is going to be a tight game in terms of Spurs are quite solid defensively, and City do seem to be leaking goals, which is an interesting point, which not a lot of people are picking up on. You know, they have conceded quite a lot considering their defense is meant to be one of the better ones in the league. We'll move to Sunday. Arsenal against Everton. I think this is a tough game for Arsenal. I think, especially coming off the back of a loss, I do expect the Emirates to be rocking again because they've seemed to got a really good energy in there this year. However, I like Everton. I like Everton in this game. I do. I don't know why. I don't necessarily think they'll win. I think maybe a 1-1 draw. You're just smiling at me.
I just think that, sorry, I was in word of my own. Arsenal, this would not surprise me. This is a game where they just go to town on Everton and beat them 3 or 4-0 at the Emirates. The Emirates this year has been a fortress. They have been very good at the Emirates, and Everton did get a big result against them last year, but it was at Goodison in a time where they needed points desperately. But this is why I'm sticking with the Arsenal assets for now. I think Martinelli, he's been incredible this year, to be completely honest. And Jesus has been a really good asset after you slated him in the transfer videos that we did.
No, I just said that I don't think he is like a real Arsenal number 9, like in terms of I think they would prefer someone with a little bit more size. And to be honest, I think he's been really good, but I do think a little bit of a bigger striker would actually suit them at times.
I think he's done really well, to be completely. 3 goals, 3 assists, I think he's on, which is, I think, quite good. Yeah, I'm going to go Arsenal 3-1.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised, let's say that. West Ham against Newcastle, I think I'm going to go for my Newcastle, mate. I always pick Newcastle. I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle.
See, this is the second Sunday now in a row that I'm not too pleased. I can't say I'm too bothered, but pleased with the fixtures they've chosen to be on TV. I think last week, Brighton, Leicester, for me, I think there were better fixtures to show on TV. Brentford, Leeds, for example. And West Ham, Newcastle. I think Arsenal, Everton, or Villa, Leicester, not being biased, are probably better games to show on TV. But
no one wants to watch Villa, Leicester, mate.
But there's a bit bias there creeping in, but we'll let it go. Newcastle, I think they get a result here. West Ham haven't really got me that excited this year. But they have big signing in Paqueta, Skamaka, big signing. They've added stability. I think where Moyes prospers is he's always defensively resolute, and then the attacking comes afterwards. So now he's got some options. I don't think he's got any European football to focus on. So I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle.
Yeah. United, well, Palace versus Manchester United. I think this is a really tough game. I think I've been impressed with Palace. I think defensively they look quite strong. I think Anderson's probably been one of their better players this year. And I think on the breakaway they are definitely capable of doing damage with Zaha. I think Eze's been good at times, but sometimes he goes through this hot or cold spell where 1 minute he's dynamite and the next he looks a bit dog shit. But overall, I've been quite impressed with him. I think it's a hard game, but I think we probably pick up like a 2. We don't really leak goals at the moment, but I'm going to go 2-1 United.
I think obviously, I don't know how bad Malassia's injury was. It wasn't a great tackle at all by Saka. I think Martinez came off injured as well after a weird clearance that basically injured him.
I don't think either's too bad, really.
Maybe a week or two, but Palace, they've been really good this year. They look really solid in what they do. I think Zaha's been great again. He tends to be quite good, and I think he's handed in about 1 million transfer requests over the years. But he is still there. Vieira is building a nice team, and I think they're going to give United a good game, but I think you'll beat them 2. No, I think it'll be 2-2, actually. I'm going to go 2-2.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I think it's a hard game. I think some games, like on paper, I feel like Arsenal's a better game for United than Crystal Palace away. I don't know why, but it just seems that way. We'll move on to Monday Night Football, the last game of the week. Leeds United against Nottingham Forest. I think it's hard for Forest at the moment. I think after last week's sort of, scoreline, it's going to be really hard on them. And this is going to be an important game for them to bounce back. I think if they can put in a decent performance here, maybe they can lift morale. But, if another, I guess you could say, beating comes their way, this could be really bad for them. And I do see Leeds getting a result here. I think overall, probably just the more solid and I guess you could say, more used to each other. They're more solid and sort of, I don't know how to put the words, familiar, I guess you could say. So I'm going to go with a Leeds 3-1 win.
For me, I think this is probably one of the best games of the weekend. I really, really like this game on paper.
You're a closet Leeds fan, you are.
I think it's going to be a cracker of a game, to be honest, mate. I think Forest's style suits Leeds, and I think Leeds' style suits Forest. I think it's going to be quite an open game, and I can see it being quite high scoring, to be honest with you. I like Forest. I like the business they've done, albeit they've made about 50 signings. And I think Leeds look far more balanced this year, whereas I wrote them off. But I am going to go with a 2-2.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think it's going to be a really good game, actually, for Monday Night Football. That's it for this video. Me and Rod will be back next week, where we'll be looking ahead for game week 8, is it? And looking back on what happened in game week 7. But thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. Leave a comment down below letting us know who you're going to be captaining for the upcoming game week, because I think it's a bit of an interesting one, probably for me right now. I mean, I might even go back to Salah. It's one of those. It's quite a hard pick right now. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.